At the northern edge of Mississippi, surrounded by flat farmland and slow-moving water, stands Mississippi State Penitentiary, widely known as Parchman Farm. It is one of the oldest prisons in the United States, built in the early 20th century on former plantation land. Its design emphasizes isolation. Distance shields it from routine public scrutiny. For decades, conditions inside rarely reach national attention unless a failure becomes impossible to conceal. The sewage disaster at Parchman is one such failure. It is not sudden. It is cumulative. It emerges from years of neglected infrastructure, inadequate maintenance, and weak oversight. If stories like this matter to you, consider subscribing, because what follows shows how ordinary neglect inside a prison turns into a public health emergency. Parchman houses thousands of incarcerated people across multiple housing units spread over a wide rural area. Many buildings are old. Plumbing systems date back decades. Pipes corrode. Drain lines clog. Valves break. Repairs are slow. Staffing shortages and limited budgets delay response. In a prison, plumbing is not a convenience. It is essential. When it fails, daily life becomes hazardous. In several housing units, toilets stop working for extended periods. Waste backs up through floor drains. Raw sewage spills into cells, hallways, and common areas. Water mixed with human waste spreads across concrete floors. In some units, flooding lasts days. In others, it lasts weeks. Incarcerated people are locked inside these spaces. They eat meals near sewage. They sleep above it. They live inside it. Lockdowns prevent relocation. There is no alternative housing. Cleaning supplies are limited or unavailable. In some cases, there is no running water. Disinfectants are not provided. Buckets, plastic bags, and improvised containers become substitutes. Waste accumulates quickly. Ventilation is poor. Odors linger. Exposure is continuous. Correctional staff can leave after a shift. Incarcerated people cannot. They remain inside contaminated units at all hours. These conditions are not isolated incidents. Court records, investigative journalism, and sworn testimony document repeated sewage failures across multiple years. In 2019 and 2020, photographs and videos from inside Parchman surfaced publicly. They show flooded tiers, clogged toilets, and feces-smeared floors. Journalists and legal teams verify the material. The evidence directly contradicts official claims that conditions are under control. Health effects follow established medical patterns. Exposure to raw sewage carries known risks. Skin contact causes rashes and infections. Breathing contaminated air irritates lungs and worsens respiratory conditions. Contact with contaminated surfaces increases the risk of gastrointestinal illness. Insects thrive in these environments. Flies and roaches spread bacteria. Mold grows in damp spaces. Incarcerated people report skin infections that do not heal, persistent coughing, difficulty breathing, diarrhea, vomiting, and fever. Medical requests increase during sewage incidents. Responses are slow. Medical units are understaffed. Transport to outside hospitals is limited. Lockdowns further restrict access to care. People remain locked in contaminated cells while reporting illness. The connection between environment and symptoms is consistent with public health standards. Correctional health experts state that functional sanitation is essential to prevent outbreaks. Prolonged sewage exposure is recognized as a serious health hazard. During multiple periods, Parchman fails to meet basic standards. The Mississippi Department of Corrections acknowledges plumbing problems but often describes them as temporary. Maintenance records and court filings show the problems are recurring. Repairs are delayed. Long-term solutions are postponed. Parchman's history matters. The prison begins as a penal farm modeled on plantation labor. Oversight is minimal for much of its existence. While reforms occur over time, infrastructure investment lags. Aging systems require continuous maintenance. At Parchman, that maintenance is inconsistent. Deferred replacement makes failure predictable. The plumbing system is interconnected. When one section fails, pressure builds elsewhere. Sewage backups spread across entire tiers. Shut-off valves are broken or inaccessible. Comprehensive repairs require shutting down water to large areas, which officials avoid due to security concerns. Temporary fixes are used instead. They fail repeatedly. Some incarcerated people report being denied showers for extended periods. Laundry services are disrupted. Clean clothing is unavailable. People wear contaminated uniforms for days. Mattresses absorb sewage water and cannot be properly cleaned. Replacement is slow. Some sleep on bare bunks. Others use cardboard or plastic to avoid flooded floors. These are improvised survival measures in a controlled environment. Correctional officers are also affected. They work in contaminated areas without adequate protective equipment. Some report illness. Others limit entry into affected units. This reduces supervision and increases tension. Sanitation failure undermines security. Stress escalates. Staff shortages worsen. The institution becomes harder to manage. Public attention intensifies as national media outlets publish evidence from inside the prison. Civil rights organizations demand inspections. The United States Department of Justice opens a civil rights investigation into Mississippi's prison system. Parchman becomes central to the inquiry. Federal investigators document unsanitary conditions and identify serious health and safety risks. Their findings raise constitutional concerns under the Eighth Amendment. Civil lawsuits follow. Complaints filed on behalf of incarcerated people describe prolonged sewage exposure, denial of hygiene, and inadequate medical care. They include dates, locations, photographs, and sworn statements. The state disputes some claims but acknowledges others. Court oversight begins. Orders require repairs and monitoring. Timelines are set. The sewage crisis occurs alongside other systemic failures. During the same period, Parchman experiences severe staffing shortages, prolonged lockdowns, and increased violence. These factors compound each other. Lockdowns hinder sanitation response. Staffing shortages delay repairs. Violence diverts resources. The prison operates in constant crisis. From a public health perspective, prisons are closed systems. Disease spreads rapidly when sanitation fails. Outbreaks do not remain confined. Staff and contractors move between the prison and surrounding communities. Health crises inside prisons affect the public outside. The sewage disaster shows how neglect becomes normalized. Maintenance requests pile up. Temporary fixes replace permanent solutions. Inspections are infrequent. Reports are minimized. Without outside scrutiny, conditions persist. When visual evidence emerges, it shocks the public because of duration, not possibility. State officials respond with emergency measures. Funds are allocated for repairs. Some fixtures are replaced. Some incarcerated people are relocated. These actions reduce immediate pressure but do not solve underlying problems. Long-term infrastructure replacement requires sustained investment. Experts note that Parchman is not unique. Many U.S. prisons operate with outdated infrastructure. Deferred maintenance is common. Budgets prioritize security over sanitation. When sanitation collapses, harm is severe. Parchman becomes a visible example of systemic neglect. The human impact is documented in testimony and medical records. Accounts from different units and periods align. Increased medical visits correlate with sewage exposure. Diagnoses include skin infections, respiratory irritation, and gastrointestinal illness. Treatment often addresses symptoms without removing environmental causes. The legal standard is clear. Incarceration removes liberty, not the right to basic sanitation. Courts consistently rule that prisons must provide humane conditions. Prolonged sewage exposure violates those standards. This is a matter of health and constitutional rights. The crisis exposes accountability gaps. Maintenance, healthcare, and security fall under different authorities. Responsibility is fragmented. Delays follow. Effective prevention requires clear accountability. At Parchman, that clarity is lacking. Journalists face resistance. Access is restricted. Official tours avoid affected areas. Whistleblowers risk retaliation. Despite this, documentation continues. Court records and first-hand evidence establish a clear record. Public pressure increases. Federal oversight forces incremental change. Repairs are made in some units. New fixtures are installed. Drainage improves. Conditions stabilize temporarily. Progress is uneven. Staffing shortages persist. Funding remains uncertain. Over time, attention shifts. Parchman fades from headlines. Court monitoring continues. Compliance reports show partial improvement. Risks remain. Recurrence is possible as long as infrastructure is fragile. The sewage disaster leaves a documented record. Photographs, medical logs, and court filings preserve it. It becomes part of Parchman's history. It shows how institutional neglect creates predictable harm. It shows that danger in prisons is not limited to violence. It includes environmental collapse. For those confined during the crisis, effects last. Health problems persist. Trust erodes. For staff, morale declines. For the public, assumptions about modern prison conditions are challenged. The significance of the Parchman sewage disaster lies in what it reveals. It reveals how basic systems fail when ignored. It reveals how people are forced to endure those failures. It reveals how oversight arrives only after exposure. It exposes the gap between standards and reality. This is not defined by one flood or one repair order. It is defined by years of neglect culminating in a public health emergency. Sanitation is foundational. When it collapses, every safeguard fails with it. If you think this story was intense, the next one will leave you speechless. Subscribe for more true crime stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat.